And good morning. We are here at the Ambrose School in Meridian, Idaho. Kevin Miller in the morning. Our great friend Davies Owens joining us, head of vision and advancement. So important to support local education. Thanks to CapEd Credit Union, Team Mazda Subaru, Pacific Office Automation, now in Boise. Pacific Office Automation, problem solved, pacificoffice.com. Davies, good to be back here.
Good morning, Kevin. Glad to have you back.
Good to have certainly a great day here at Ambrose. And for people that aren't familiar with the Ambrose School, those people in Boise or in Nampa, they're not Meridian-centric like some of us, or have that Meridian bias like yours truly. Tell us a little bit about the Ambrose School.
Absolutely. We're conveniently located, Kevin, by the way, kind of near the intersection of Chinden and Locust Grove, not far from Eagle Road. So we actually can claim we're just slightly south of
Davies, we're going to apologize. Let's see if we move you over to this microphone. Let's grab this. There we go. We're a little informal here this morning.
There we go. All right, Kevin.
I'm glad we're taping.
It's good to be heard.
Yes, I'm glad we're taping this. Oh, no, we're not. Anyway, if you could just tell us that once again, please.
Yeah, I was just making the comment that we are indeed in Meridian, but we're near the intersection of Locust Grove and Chinden, just down from Eagle, a little west of Eagle. So we are just slightly south of Eagle and slightly west of Boise. So we kind of claim all the community. The whole Treasure Valley, we like to think, is part of the Ambrose School.
I would say I had a friend of mine go, well, I'm from southeast Boise, and I'm going to come here today. And I go, look, it's so easy to get here.
Yeah.
You know, hop on the highway, Eagle Road,
Yeah.
Chinden, and Locust Grove, and you're here.
So we're a 24-year-old classical Christian school, been here in the Valley, faithfully serving families literally from around the community. And it's a growing school, and we've got about 560 students in our K through 12, all in the one building here, and then across the street, we've got a new program we launched a year and a half ago called the Bridge Program, which is kind of half Ambrose School and half back home. So folks that like the homeschool model can have that alternative.
You know, we always talk about polarizing things on KIDO Talk Radio. Is there an atmosphere for classical Christian education in today's world, sir?
You know, I think that more than ever, Kevin. In fact, I think we could defend the argument that the fastest growing segment of Christian education today is classical Christian. And what we're finding is that more and more individuals that are looking for an alternative to government schools are then looking into historically just generic, what I call generic Christian schools. The problem is a lot of the generic Christian schools are really behind the scenes modern progressive schools, still obligated because of accreditation to sort of standards that are coming through state standards. And that's problematic for a lot of families, especially when you're paying a tuition and your Christian aspect then ends up being a Bible class or maybe something more cursory. And we've got some great schools in the Valley. I'm thinking kind of nationally what we're seeing in the movement. So more and more schools are saying we want to kind of retrofit. And I always make the point, classical Christian is arguably the way the West educated for the last 1,500, 2,000 years. So everybody from your Thomas Jeffersons to your average farmer back in the day knew the great books, read and studied Latin, and had a very well-rounded education.
The West, you mean Western Civ as
Yes.
opposed to the Western United States?
Yes.
You have to be a little...
I would say, but all of the above, because the Western, yes, it would include all, it's absolutely the West as a Western civilization.
Well,
forward.
I'm sorry, Davis, keep going. I have a tendency to jump in here.
No,
Go
you're
ahead,
doing,
please.
yeah, no. It's all good. It's just, to answer your question, I think classical Christian education is actually, I believe with all my heart as I pour into this, that we're raising up a generation that really is able to thoughtfully discuss and think and communicate. You know, case in point, our seniors, when they graduate, they have to do a 30-plus page research thesis. I started to say dissertation. They have to defend before a panel. So these are students that are not afraid to take on an argument, to think through difficult things, and in an age in which we can't even have civil discourse, we'd like to think these kids are able to walk out and think on their feet. And I always say these are not just the smarty kids that we grabbed. These are all-American, red-blooded kids that walk in here, a lot of times matriculating in later into middle school or upper school, and do really well. And I think what I hear from so many in the workforce today is we need more students that can show up with a strong work ethic, that know how to problem solve. We can train them later on the latest robotic tips and tricks, because we get sometimes dinged for, wait, you're the humanities Shakespeare guys, you don't really have anything to do with the modern world. And we're like, oh, no. Kids today are moving into an economy that I think more and more the workforce in America is looking for deeply trained liberal arts-based students that can think across multiple disciplines.
Right. Spoken like a true podcaster. Davey Owens joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning here on KIDO Talk Radio. Davies, what is that like, though, in today's world? Because you've got the president, doing his thing. You've got this big midterms coming up. And people of faith sometimes feel marginalized. Yeah. And that here you have this school where people of faith, of Christian faith, of Western values that are under siege, under fire all the time. You're trying to keep that flame alive. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just a simple principle of how do you train a generation that can speak the truth and love, and you can't separate those two things. I mean, we are a culture that is built on a Judeo-Christian understanding of there are absolutes, there are non-negotiables in truth. It's not just whatever suits your fancy in that moment. Freedom isn't just untethered, reckless, do what you want. We think there's truth, but it's not a harsh truth that is unwilling to engage gracefully the world outside our doors. So the hope is that we're raising a generation. I think of a lot of what we do. For instance, Kevin, we read 125 of the greatest books of Western civilization. And I think about a book like ninth grade, The Great Gatsby, which Fitzgerald's book. A lot of times, maybe more conservative folks would say, "Well, why are you allowing ninth grade Christian kids to read a book that's got very worldly decisions that Gatsby made?" But it's kind of a way to vicariously live through this guy in the book, and you realize he made some decisions that didn't work out so great, and so then we can create that conversation in the classroom. So these are kids that are not unfamiliar with the world; they're kids that have talk through a lot of the issues, and right. That's the vision. It's like smallpox. How do you inoculate? You actually inject a little of that stuff in your arm, and it's poison. It's bad stuff, but your body builds an immunity to it.
Right.
So let's work that out before we step out of here, but do it in love.
Sure. Davies, let's talk a little bit about Feed the Need. What's going on here? Your annual project.
You picked a great day to be here, Kevin. This is going to be. We got a lot in store for the listeners today. So 4 years ago, we in the vein of saying let's not just talk about serving our neighbor. And I would also just footnote to what we were just talking about. Education isn't just information, it's formation. And the way we form students is through giving them a way to experience hands-on things like service. So what this looked like for us is we partnered up with an organization called Homestead Ministries out of Colfax, Washington. Maybe the founder's here today. Maybe we'll get him on the air, Tom Redner. Tom was a farmer, and he said, we got to do something about hunger in the Pacific Northwest. You look at Idaho, 1 in 6 individuals are in need of some kind of food assistance. 72,000 children in the state of Idaho, which is unfathomable to most of us. So Tom drives his rig down. It's got about 10,000 pounds of dried beans, and he's worked up this really interesting system where our gym is now turned into a food packing warehouse with all these stations with funnels. And so we bring in K through 12 students throughout the day. They're pouring beans into the funnel. We've got another station set up to mix spice mixes, and Tom has this fascinating soup mix, basically, that when you're all done and it's vacuum sealed, we hand it over to the Boise Rescue Mission. They distribute it throughout the valley and throughout Idaho, and it's got a long shelf life. And that little packet of dried beans can feed 6 people, a very tasty, high-protein meal. So we're going to, between now and about 3 o'clock today, produce about 10,000 bags of food to feed 60,000 people. Wow.
Davies, that's amazing. If people want more information about the Ambrose School, what can they do?
Just go to theambroseschool.org. Got pretty good details on there for what we're all about. Yeah.
All right, Davies, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Kevin.
Appreciate it. Joining us now here on KIDO Talk Radio, Brian Kilmeade. You catch him on Fox and Friends, syndicated talk show host and author of the latest historical thriller, Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans, the battle that shaped America's destiny. Brian, good to have you with us here in Idaho.
Gavin, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
We take a look at the world today. Andrew Jackson made such a historical contribution to the nation, so much so your good friend President Trump has him in the Oval Office. You have such access to the historical newsmakers of the day. What made Andrew Jackson so special, sir?
Well, I mean, he's certainly colorful. He's certainly impactful. I mean, if you're 14 and an orphan in early America and you end up being a 2-term president, I think that's worthy of study. If you make yourself a lawyer, a judge, an attorney general, a congressman, a senator, and then most importantly, a militia general that helps this country in its time of almost total destruction in the War of 1812, I thought that's worthy of study. I'm not saying he was perfect, but I only looked at his military, what led to his military success and this huge this huge victory in New Orleans and what it meant to the country at the time. But I did not know the president was going to run for president. I did not know the similarities between the two. I did not know he was going to win. I did not know he was going to give a major speech from the Hermitage, his home, that's Andrew Jackson's home. And I did not know he was going to hang his portrait in the Oval Office. Next thing you know, it's as if Andrew Jackson was also in the office at the same time, which is great for the book, but it actually muddies the message a little.
Brian Kilmeade joining us. Brian, what's it like to be on Fox and Friends for so many years and then to go into radio? You've got a big successful following. You guys just don't stop working.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it as a big gym, and if you like sports, you're going to play every sport possible. You can't believe you have gym all day, and that's what I always wanted when I was in school. So if they say to you, hey, Brian, you can fill in for Tony Snow on the radio, and I did all sports radio, and I had a radio background generally, I said, that's great. And then when Tony Snow went to the White House, right, I was on with the Judge for a couple of years, and then I had a chance to do it myself, and you know how great radio is. Who would ever not do a radio show when asked? I mean, what is better than this? And then if they ask you to do, go and do the 5 or fill in for Tucker, why wouldn't you want to do that? To me, and the big secret is, we both know it, it's not really work, especially because this is what we talk about all the time. So we're actually just getting paid to do something we love to do, while interviewing people we cannot wait to talk to, who probably wouldn't talk to us unless we had a show.
My man, Brian Kilmeade, you've defined the lifestyle. I remember that. Brian and the Judge, you guys went at it all the time. Let's talk more about Andrew Jackson. What do we, in your research for the book, Andrew Jackson, The Miracle of New Orleans, what did you find out about Andrew Jackson that most of us didn't know?
Well, number one, I did not know how much was self-taught with him. I mean, he, in a time in which when you have such things happen to you in childhood, you could knuckle under and go into the cocoon, or you could prove that you matter. When you go through your whole childhood and never get a present, you don't have any parents, you don't have any people that are taking you in because they're your family, if they do it out of obligation, you get this. I got a sense that he really said to himself, instead of using this as an excuse, I'm going to use it as motivation. So I had no idea I was talking about a rags to riches story to the degree I was. Number two, also toughness. Everything in his life, he never took a backward step. It reminds me very similar to President Trump, different circumstances. But I mean, he got in duels. He stuck up for friends. He called, when prisoners would report for their jail time, he went out and got them. So when he, when he had to lead men and they would think otherwise, he would threaten them. They better follow him. He also was somebody as a military general that would resonate with the everyday soldier. He would march with them and give his horses to the wounded or those who were sick. He wasn't worried that he was an officer, but at the same time, he bled red, white, and blue. And I think when it was all said and done, I think as much as he was confident and tough, he also had humility to know what he didn't know. So he surrounded himself with a lot of people that were smarter than him. And then when he was done being president, I did not know how much influence he still had on the country. Martin Van Buren, he mentored, I get it. Sam Houston, he mentored, I understand it. But other people would come to him for advice and for his political blessing. So when he went back to Nashville, he was still powerful. So that's really more John Meacham's area. But with this war that we won, what he did to motivate Choctaw Indians, Cherokee Indians, free men of color, Cajuns, pirates, a regular militia, and everyday townspeople from New Orleans, and meld them into a fighting force in 3.5 weeks. I don't even understand that type of leadership. That's how great that is.
Well, Brian Kilmeade, you're a great guy, and the great thing about Brian Kilmeade, friends, is that he's the same on the air as he's off the air. Brian, you won't remember this, but I shared an elevator once with you, Mancow, and Sean Hannity at the Avenue of the Americas, and being in an elevator with all these Type A personalities. I mean, Mancow was just like an introvert, but you always had a quick comment, and always appreciate your friendship, always appreciate the radio show, and obviously we love the book. We love you on Fox, sir.
Well, thanks so much. Continued success to you. I appreciate you having me on. And I'll see you in the elevator again soon, I hope.
Thank you, Brian. Take care.
All right.
Yeah, you never understand where you're going to be. Davies Owens joining us once again from the Ambrose School. So, Davies, I've had a blessed friendship with Sean Hannity for years. So I'm at the Avenue of the Americas, and I'm like the little kid waiting for Sean to get there. All right, come on, Kevin, let's go. The security guard says, I need your ID to Sean Hannity. And Sean just, do you know who I am? You know. So
it's a humbling moment.
Right. Yes, a very humbling moment afterwards for the security guard.
Yes.
But so we're in the elevator, and this radio guy, Mancow, is sitting there, and Kilmeade and Hannity are just like having a show going back at it. And it's just one of those things you find yourself, how did I get here?
Yeah, you kind of pinch yourself and think, what do I do in this moment? It's
right.
Pretty, yeah.
It's like our moment together now.
I'm thinking the same thing, except we're not in an elevator.
Indeed. Coming up in about 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes, I'd like to talk about the education here at the Ambrose School, if that works for you.
Love to talk about it. Absolutely,
okay.
Kevin. Yeah.
KIDO Talk Radio Time, 622, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
These are tough people. These are not angels. These are not little angels. These are tough people, and we're not letting them into our country. They're not coming in illegally. The Democrat agenda is the agenda of the extreme far left. They've gone crazy, folks. They've gone totally loco. We believe in the process. We don't run around like Antifa with the little arms and then go back home into mommy's basement. We really have to bypass the media because it's so one-sided and unfair in order to get straight to the American people. That's what we're doing. Somebody was involved, and then somebody else told them, you made a big mistake. Look at what happened. You have made a big mistake because people have really galvanized over this. We want people to come into our country, but they have to come into our country legally and through merit.
KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. There you have the President of the United States at a rally in Missouri. Win, lose, or draw, the President certainly has hit the road quite a bit, kind of like that old song, Big Old Jet Airliner. The President having one position, other folks having the other. We'll get your thoughts on that. 580-5436. 580-KIDO, KIDO Talk Radio Time, 626. Let's get you to work safely and on time.
Jerry Gabbard.
And here we are once again, taking your phone calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Another thing that I do want to talk about today is just driving on the roads. Obviously, you're, well, Kevin, I'm driving on the roads, but how dangerous has it become? And if you missed yesterday's Miller Minute, well, I can't listen all the time. I understand. But we were talking about the need to start enforcing, with real enforcement, texting and driving restrictions. Now, I know what you're saying, Kevin, we have distracted driving. Kevin, we talked a little bit about this a few years ago, and yes, it's against the rules to text and drive. Police can get you. Police can give you a ticket. But it's not working. It really isn't working. I will raise my hand in front of Davies Owens, in front of Chandler, in front of Ray Amaya, and everybody here at the Ambrose School this morning and say, you know, I can tell you at a stoplight sometimes, and that is wrong. It is unsafe. And when I'm not doing that, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, well, what's Timmy doing next door? What's somebody else doing next door in their cars? And what are they doing? Young and old at the stoplights. And then maybe you're driving down a two-way street and you see the car veering towards you, and it's somebody, young and old, texting and driving. Very dangerous, folks. We're going to talk about that this morning. First, we go to Max in Garden City on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. And, Max, we know you love KIDO Talk Radio, right?
I love KIDO Talk Radio. I like you, even though you don't return my emails.
Now,
or
Max.
call me back. Yeah, shame on you. There, I feel better already. No, I love this show. It's, you know, your radio station has the guts to put you on. And I hope they can maintain that courage. I really do. This texting and driving thing. Like someone told you once before, we do have distracted driving rules. The problem is they're not being enforced. I don't know, give the police a quota or something. find a way to make it really, really painful financially to text and drive. This thing recently about the lady in Indiana who ran over and killed the children. Did they ever find out if she was texting?
Got me.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Pickup truck, yeah. Well, moving over to the thing I really called about.
Yeah, moving over to what's your agenda.
Yeah, to my agenda, to push that evil agenda. It's this whole, the president made a statement. He said that if these demonstrators, these illegal invading aliens, start throwing rocks and things at the soldiers, these are things that can hurt and kill. He said, we're going to treat these as firearms. I am not one for capital punishment or anything of that sort, but this is different. If they're throwing weapons at us and crashing the gates of our house, America, we've got to defend ourselves. If you throw rocks and crawl through my bedroom window, I'm going to blow your spine out. And if the enemy does that to our country, they must understand it can happen on the border. The president has to make some tough decisions. But I believe that he has shown a great deal of compassion and a great deal of understanding in the fact that we are erecting Tent City. But by the same token, kindness should not be mistaken for weakness. Would you agree?
I would agree. And you believe in the president, then, that he's doing the right thing?
Yeah, I do. I still think he needs a tweet master general, someone to focus on cleaning up his tweets. But I back the guy in this decision 100%. The only other alternative is the Obama-esque catch and release. And that just, oh, Lord, it's going to take decades to weed them out and find them. The president told us that there are over 1 million illegal aliens in this country who have been served a notice to leave. They've been told it's time to get out. You've been tried. All we got to do now is find them like cockroaches on the floor.
All right, Max.
Which one to go?
Max, God bless. By the way, we met at Miller's Mission, which will be November 12th through the 17th. And you can have me all day if you'd like to drive out to Nampa, Walmart, Garrity, and Franklin, like we did the first time you arrived in the Treasure Valley 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, as coincidence would have it, I have to have my oil changed over at Corwin Ford on the 12th. So why don't I just leave my car there and take a golf cart over to see you?
Day one with Max. It will be fun.
See you then, partner.
Thank you, Max. Kevin Miller in the morning. Again, when you hear Max on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. We are here at the Ambrose School right in Meridian, Idaho. More coming up, promoting our school, securing our future. I want to thank CapEd Credit Union, Team Mazda Subaru, and our newest addition to promote our school, secure our future. Get this, Pacific Office Automation, now in Boise. Pacific Office Automation. Problem solved, pacificoffice.com. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
And blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning. Remember, Pacific Office Automation now in Boise. Pacific Office Automation. Problem solved, pacificoffice.com. Davies Owens joining us once again from the Ambrose School, promoting our school, securing our future. Always great to get out in the community. Davies, you've been here for quite some time. Just in your time here in Idaho, coming from your beloved South. And folks in the South usually never leave the South. Your time here, how has the school grown along with the community of Meridian in the Treasure Valley?
Yeah, great question. And I am a grateful Idahoan at this point, even though I still drink my sweet tea on the weekends, so it's good stuff.
You can get the Milos at the Walmart, by the way.
When Chick-fil-A moved here, I was like, all right. In fact, the opening day of Chick-fil-A, it was like displaced Southerners drinking their sweet tea. It's kind of funny, but I love Idaho. We're grateful to be here. So, yeah, Idaho continues to recognize the value of having school choice, and we're a big fan of school choice in general. And you look at I think as many people are moving into the valley looking for other options. So it's been a great season for us to be a part of education in Idaho and trying to, again, raise up a generation that can really think deeply and be able to solve problems, and yet more than just have a cursory understanding of what they value, but really it becomes their identity. Again, formation, not just information.
Indeed. Let's talk about just one of the more amazing programs that you have here where you take your kids, they study Western civilization.
Yeah.
And you can say proudly, Western civilization.
Western, yes. Not just cowboy boots.
Right, Western civilization, and then you take them to Europe.
Yeah.
Take us through that, please.
Yeah, it's really the capstone for our seniors, and these students work long and hard to raise money for this trip, and it's, the way we study history, Kevin, is in a cyclical pattern, ancient, medieval, modern. So starting in second grade, all of their literature and even theology isn't just Bible class. It's actually you're reading the Bible along with the great books of Western civilization. It follows a cyclical history pattern. So by the time they get to their senior year, they've been through world history basically 4 times. So you take a bunch of seniors in October. We go on a 10-day trip. We fly into Rome, we go to Florence, Paris, and London. So ancient, medieval, modern. And it's a pretty humbling experience. These kids are grateful. They've raised the money for the trip, but they appreciate what they're seeing. And what we often get to celebrate is through the eyes and the ears of the tour guides in Europe who are used to sort of the typical American teens that come through and they kind of roll their eyes at all of the artwork and the historical sites, and then rush off to the nearest McDonald's to get some real food and move on with the day. And it's been exciting. You take these kids and they see Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. They know who that is. They understand their place in history, and they understand why our country is so such a blessed place to be in light of the struggles throughout the centuries of different eras and different leaders in different parts of the world. So it's an important education.
I'd say few Americans have that frame of reference if and when they go to Europe.
Absolutely, that is the case. And because unfortunately most of us have had, and for many of us it's been a while since we even had American history. I won't speak anymore about that, but it's just not a living history. And I think that, again, it's unfortunate because for most of us in our education, and this is a great compare and contrast, most history is just dates and information, and we kind of shove it in, give it out on the test, and forget about it. And if you can actually make that history living,
right,
and in the vein of a conversation. So when we're studying literature in a junior class, we're also linking into the history that was going on at that time, the theology that was at stake, as far as the way the world was framed up.
Right, making it real. Who would have ever thought that the Battle of Thermopylae, which really was one of the, I learned about it in 9th grade, what really got me into history, would become such a major movie. Now, again, Hollywood and such, but here you have these Spartans who, gave up everything to save, essentially, Western civilization, Greece.
Yeah.
And, it's a major motion picture, but those stories, real-life people like us that had families that sacrificed for the greater good.
That's right. Well, and again, the old adage, nothing new under the sun, history repeats itself. I mean, we're fools to think that the way we are in this moment in America in 2018, that a lot of the lessons that we're facing, again, a lot of comparisons being made to where Rome was, right on the edge of its demise. And I think we'd be wise to be aware of that history and not just think in terms of that's the place with the old ruins over there in Rome. But let's actually walk through the Roman Forum or the Colosseum and ask ourselves a question: what happened to this great country? Because at the moment of the height of their reign, they thought they were invincible.
Right, indeed. Got to watch out for the Gauls and.
There's some challenges. Guard those gates, but yeah.
Indeed, for people listening right now that are tuned in to this show, specifically on Fridays for Promote Our School, Secure Our Future, what would you say to them about the Ambrose School, and maybe they'd like to take a look at it?
Yeah, we'd love to have anybody come take a look at it, and it's it's a K-12 classical Christian school. We've, like I said earlier, families from all different walks of life. We've got a pretty robust financial aid program, and so it's a real mix of the Valley, and it's kids of varying abilities that are here that are really all sort of working towards a common good of doing excellent in school. But come visit us. I think the best way to see what we're up to, you just have to come sit in these classrooms. We've got a great
you can
personal
sit in the
tour.
Classrooms.
You can come sit in the classroom. Please check in before you sit in the classrooms.
I've already seen the security, so
we definitely take you to talk to us first. But no, we'll take in a personal tour. And I've often said, trying to explain classical Christian education to someone is sort of like trying to explain chocolate to someone who's never had it. It's like, well, I think that sounds pretty good, but I'm not really sure. And I give you a nice piece of Hershey or dark chocolate, whatever you prefer, and you're like, oh, I get it. So come sit in the classrooms, and more than anything, just be encouraged at what a young generation is capable of. I think a lot of times, you were asking earlier, I think in the effort to try to make education accessible, we continue to lower the bar down to the point where we're really underserving young people today.
Thank you, Davies. More coming up with you. Thank you, by the way, for having us and for being our point man here this morning.
Hey, it's great to have you here, Kevin. Anytime.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Tom Munz, TomMunz.com, Munz Tom Twitter, about texting and driving. Good morning, Tom.
You know, I kind of like that guy. He didn't say rigorous one time.
Fair
Anyway.
enough. The Tom Munz approval.
Well, thanks, Kevin. I look forward to seeing you on rainy Sunday. I had a couple things. I think Max was topping on those, but I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One of them is, what is our law? What is our standard for law? And do more laws create a more secure future? And if they do, what about freedom? And where do you draw the line? When you have texting, unless we have probable cause, and probable cause is not a crooked license plate, no matter what anybody tells you, it's not crossing over the yellow line. Probable cause had to do with the commission of a crime. So unless you commit a crime, you really have no access to my cell. Unless I commit a crime, you don't have any access to my cell phone, and you'll never have access to my cell phone, because then once you've got access into my car, you're going to tell me what kind of car seat I should have. Oh, wait, they already do that. I'm sorry. Maybe a better one is, what radio station I should listen to. Maybe if my CDs fall off my visor and I happen to reach for one and I cross the line a little bit, maybe we should remove CDs. Maybe if I'm distracted by by my digital panel on my car, which I commonly am, maybe we should remove digital panels. You know what? Maybe we should remove radios altogether. And what about when you have to look down at your speedometer to be able to find out what speed you're going? Because if you happen to go just a few degrees over that, you're going to end up getting nailed. And if I don't have cruise control or I decide not to use cruise control, are you following me?
I'm sorry, Tom. I was going to talk to Chandler. I was taking a break while I was getting a lesson on probable cause.
Hold on.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was going to answer your question. Back to you.
Let's just get down to brass tacks here. But, if we're going to call ourselves conservatives, we really should start defining what those terms mean, because some of the things that we're in support of are totalitarian, and we don't even know it. So in other words, if we claim to be constitutional, we claim to love freedom, we claim to love liberty, the answer to that, the answer to some of the problems that we have is not more laws. We've become more totalitarian in the amount of laws we have, to the point where it actually frustrates laws.
We don't enforce the laws that we have, number one. And number two, then why in Oregon or Nevada? And, it would be fascinating to look at their accidents compared to our accidents involving texting and driving. Do they have the more punitive laws? And I would say probably less incidents of people texting and driving and hurting folks.
But we still have more. But what you're saying is we have laws that are not being enforced. That's not the problem of the citizen. That's again the failure of the government for creating laws that they're not going to enforce. Now what it does is it creates a tremendous burden for law enforcement, because they have one law that says they can do something. They got one law that says they can't. I mean, look at what's going on with civil asset forfeiture. These guys are going in and saying, if you can't justify what you own in your car, we're entitled to it. Are you kidding me?
Well, now, Tom, we're getting off the road here, but my point being that when you go to Oregon and you're caught texting and driving, well, you're going to pay a big fine. And guess what? I would assume, and you know what happens when one assumes, but I'll go out there on a limb, that when you have less incidents that we have here, and I don't, the texting thing, I don't know what the deal is with law enforcement. They've got enough to do. They've got certainly a lot to do, but I think that would further, enhancing the consequence would make a big difference, I believe. And I'll tell you, the carrot hasn't worked. It's getting worse. You're on the roads more than most. Do you see people texting and driving, texting at stoplights? Hey, I got to give somebody a like on the Facebook.
All the time. But, here's another thing, too. I'm writing notes on the back of envelopes to be able to keep myself straight when I'm on the radio with you.
Yes.
Do I swerve? Yeah, I do. So are they going to ban envelopes and pens from cars, too? My point is that, and it shouldn't matter what Oregon is doing, Idaho should be a big boy and start standing on its own and start doing some of the things. Maybe somebody could perpetuate freedom in a state for a change rather than totalitarianism and saying, well, if this law doesn't work, we'll just create this one.
Okay, now here I go. I'm going to say this, Tom. You're saying to me on KIDO Talk Radio that strengthening safe driving laws is a march towards totalitarianism?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. And I'd love anybody to challenge me from that.
Man.
I am. Thanks. I am saying that.
Tom Munns, TomMunns.com. Munns Tom Twitter took me to school today. We will see him Sunday at the great, big, wet Republican rally at the State House at 1 o'clock. Tom, thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. By the way, if you want more information on the State House rally, I've wrote about it at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Lots of our great friends are going to be there. It's going to be a fun day as we get ready for the midterms. You're listening to Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. And there we have it. I do want to thank Tom Munns. We'll throw that out for conversation concerning texting and driving. Also the latest on the Caravan. And coming up at 7:05, we're going to have another young man here from the Ambrose School joining us with Davies as we continue to take your calls. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. The Idaho Statesman is reporting for an end of the ballot measure, the campaign to raise car registration fees in Ada County has attracted some big donations. Now, many people have come out against this, and I know Pat from Middleton is going to say, there goes liberal Kevin once again. But, you know, what are we going to do about the roads? Are these registration fees actually going to help raise the roads in Ada County? Look at Chinden, which is where we are today at the Ambrose School. You're going to have continued growth, continued building, and it's 2 lanes. 2 lanes. Come on. Certainly it has to come up. ACHD says, look, Kevin Miller, we need this to make sure that we can, make sure that we have the roads so we can have more subdivisions. Well, that's the case. Of course, I believe a vehicle over 8,000 pounds will be exempt from the registration, and we see this all the time. And we love people that drive over the road. We love the truck drivers, a skill that is amazing, and particularly truck drivers here in the Treasure Valley. Am I pandering? Yes! That's what this show's about, pandering. But to have the skill, not only to drive with one thing on your back, but then 2 or 3. I think I saw a UPS guy or FedEx guy with 3 trailers driving through Chinden the other day, taking a right. It was amazing to watch, and we take that for granted. But obviously, and we have covered this for many, many years, the roads need to be taken care of. Another ballot initiative. Should you vote for it? Now, according to the Statesman, and if it's in the Statesman, it must be true, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, the builders are behind it. It's the builders and the realtors. Now, what gets me, and look, if you're watching TV, we're getting inundated with political ads. I saw a couple of ads for Ada County folks with a firefighter, a female firefighter, and firefighters for these candidates. And I'm going, I've never heard of these people. I have heard of Jim Tibbs. I have heard of Kent Goldthorpe. I have heard of these folks. We've had them on, but it's amazing the special interest that seem to be jumping in. Look at what's going on in the state school superintendent's race. Sherry Ibarra. All of a sudden, Sherry Ibarra is a bad Sherry Ibarra because you've got folks going after her. And you've got Cindy Wilson, and I don't know if the Wilson campaign is paying for those ads, but you've got pro-Cindy Wilson ads. It's amazing. Of course, it's what politics and government and what the kids here at the Ambrose School learn about and what we'll talk about, but these outside groups coming in. And we really, we've covered this ACHD thing, this Ada County thing with the roads. Remember a few years ago when Governor Otter talked about, the gas tax, and he was mad because his big F-150, I believe, he pays more than the guy in the AAC, Prius. Thank you, Davies. Sometimes you lose yourself because you get going. Forget about it. He's rolling. And there is a challenge here, and these are real life issues. So if the builders and the realtors get together to raise registration fees, well, what about impact fees? Dr. Alquist has talked to us about that. What about the big trucks? They tear up the roads more than the Team Mazda Subaru Drive for Excellence in Education Forester. More on that in a minute. Traffic and weather together. KIDO.
Eric Gabbard.
Rain and snow, it must be November in the Treasure Valley. Don't forget Miller's Mission, November 12th through the 17th, where we ask you to give a turkey, not be a turkey. Yesterday I said be a turkey, not give a turkey. But again, we're a little bit more awake this morning on this Friday from the Ambrose School. Promoting our school, securing our future, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation. Now in Boise, Pacific Automation, problem solved, pacificoffice.com. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.